The two most free-scoring teams in English football from the last two seasons going head-to-head. This is going to be entertaining. Hopefully this will be too. This is Blue Monday. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, an Ipswich Town podcast now in our 10th season. My name is Mikey Penty-Smith and this is the Prematch Show. We're available live every week at 8 p.m. on YouTube and available on podcast shortly afterwards, giving you all of the insight ahead of the weekend's game. And joining me in his regular spot ahead of Manchester City is the man in Chester. It's Seb Brown. Nice local one for you, this one, Seb.
It is, yeah, not quite my closest, but certainly a lot quicker than driving to Portman Road or elsewhere. So looking forward to this one, looking forward to seeing some of the regular faces from away games last season. And yeah, I thought the research for Liverpool last week was a little bit daunting. Spoiler alert, you're about to hear some numbers that will be quite scary, but stick with us and we'll see how we get on.
And was this difficult research, Seb? Tricky to find stats about Manchester City?
No, surprisingly, it's ridiculously easy. I've gone from probably spending 3 to 4.5 hours a week doing research, trying to find information in League One and the Championship. And suddenly, with a simple few clicks of a button, I can get in-depth tactical analysis that goes far and above anything I've used for the last two seasons. So whilst it is daunting, these stats, from a research point of view, this is an absolute dream. I'm not going to lie.
Lovely. And we'll get into the news to start. And we haven't had a signing today, Seb. Not yet, anyway. Please keep us updated if something happens while we're live. But the big news of today is that we've been linked with the exciting Jack Clarke at Sunderland. Seb, this would be the final piece of the jigsaw, surely.
Well, maybe a centre-half as well, given some of the names we're linked with. But from an attacking point of view, yeah, it's a really exciting one again, isn't it? It was a name that was leaked probably about a month ago now or so? And I did wonder if it was a bit of a smoke screen to Blackburn to get them to hurry up with the Schmodic negotiations. But it looks like it was something we're kind of following through. I think Stu Watson reported today that talks are advanced, so it would suggest that it's hopefully moving along. 15 million quid, another exciting best in class from the Championship joining us. He loves playing on that left-hand side, cutting in. We saw, remember the goal he scored in January in the Portman Road game, cutting in on his right foot. And yeah, another top-class player. If we get him and they decide we need a right-sided centre-half, who we get, then like the podcast last night with Craig and Joe, one chap in the comments said we can't possibly have given ourselves any more chance of staying up, and that will be accurate because, you know, the level of these signings is incredible. It's strange to think now we were sat here, was it 4 weeks ago, and we were really bemoaning the lack of transfers. Schmodic deal was ongoing. There were very few names linked for central midfield, and all of a sudden, you know, we're spoiled for choices now in certain places. Jens Kayiste's come in. We'll discuss later on. Do we think he'll come straight into the starting lineup for Saturday, or will he kind of be drip fed in from the bench a little bit? But yeah, suddenly now that Jack Clarke on the left, possibly a right-sided centre half, and we are good to go.
Lovely. And if you want to hear more about our potential new signing, Armando Broja and Koyusti, are you going with Koyusti? Is that what it is?
I am not the man to ask for pronunciation. Surely the last 4 years of pre-match have taught you that.
We'll go with
bow down to anybody's
Kajusti.
superior knowledge.
We'll go with Kajusti. I think it's Koyusti, isn't it? He's Swedish. Yeah, if you want to hear more about those guys and Cameron Humphreys, who's gone on loan to Wickham, highly recommend checking out last night's show, which Joe and Craig put together, kind of last minute thing, but really nicely done from them. And yeah, I guess this is the time for me to say yes, I'm not Rich Woodward. Well done for those of you that have noticed. You'll win a special prize if you can pinpoint the last time that I did the pre-match show. It was a long time ago, and we were a couple of divisions below. But I'm filling into Rich's shoes tonight, and I've promised Rich that I'm going to bicker with Seb this evening, just to keep the usual dynamic going. Matt Makin is here. If we're talking about troublemakers, he's on the train home from Peterborough to Ipswich. Matt Phillips says that he's been promised that Seb will be explaining our route to victory on Saturday. It's basically Seb versus Pep. No pressure, Seb. Colin Plum's here. Cheers, Rando. Yeah, really enjoyed being serenaded in the Greyhound last Saturday. That wasn't embarrassing at all. And then again, when I was walking past the Churchman stand, or the Rand stand, as some people know it as, Jem Allen says, good evening. Alex Jenkins Richards had a James Norwood style hair transplant. I hope this is better than James Norwood's hair transplants. Hello to James Norwood if you're watching. Right, Seb, let's get into this team then. Manchester City, they won an unprecedented 4th title in a row last season. So that's back to back to back to back up against our back-to-back promotions. And they're most people's favourites to make that 5, aren't they? But do you think we're potentially coming to the end of this cycle? And could Pep Guardiola potentially be moving on at the end of his contract?
Well, that seems to be most of the thought, doesn't it? He's going into the last year of his deal. I think it might be fair to say he's probably stayed for longer than most people thought. You know, Barcelona did a few years, took a sabbatical, went to New York for a year, went to Bayern, did a couple of years while City kind of built this off-field structure that would, you know, enable him to come in, and he had all the support staff in the various off-field technical positions that he needed. And yeah, this is now his 9th season there. I mean, the honours list we'll discuss is absolutely ridiculous, but he's in the final 12 months of his contract. There was that quote on the pitch, wasn't there, when they were lifting the title back in May, saying he was closer to the end of his time than the beginning. And then he kind of brushed it off a little bit in the summer and said, you know, well, that's just a fact. I am closer to leaving than I am staying. But yeah, a lot of things are kind of, we've got, we're not going to go into detail on the off-field stuff with PSR, etc. But it does perhaps feel like maybe the Guardiola era is winding down. Quite a few players in that squad, you know, we'll discuss John Stones, Kyle Walker, Gundogan possibly returning, are reaching the end of their cycle, De Bruyne too. So maybe he's going to see it, yeah, go out with a swan song, go for 5 on the bounce, which is absolutely crazy. You know, even the great Man United sides only managed 3 on the bounce. So to do 4 is unprecedented. 5 would be remarkable. And sail off into the sunset potentially. Maybe to the FA, into the England job. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Would you have him as England manager?
Yeah, I absolutely would, although I can't see him doing it for the money that would be available. He is favourite for the job at the moment, and Kieran McKenna's out at 25 to 1. Dream on, England fans. But yeah, I'd definitely take him, but I just can't see him doing it. It does baffle me with Pep Guardiola. He's kind of done it all now with Manchester City. Club World Cup, Champions League, all of these back-to-back league titles. I just can't for the life of me work out what is driving him to wake up in one of the wettest and rainiest parts of the world every day. And that isn't me being northernist, because Pep Guardiola, let's face it, if he wasn't at Manchester City, he probably wouldn't be living down south. He'd be living, well, he would be further south than the south of England. He'd be on a yacht somewhere in Monaco or in Barcelona or somewhere beautiful like that. It is sort of baffling that he keeps wanting to go and do it again, but he obviously really enjoys being on the training pitch with all of these really elite players, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess waking up every morning and knowing that you can, you know, try and find new ways. It's not just the winning, is it? It's the way we talk about him as being a real revolutionary of English football, European football. You know, the things we've seen him do with centre. I think he was the first one to invert fullbacks, wasn't he? And really, the centre half stepping up into the midfield, the kind of the false 9. I know Spain did it, but he's done it a few times at City. I guess finding these new tactical genius solutions to, you know, potential squad problems is perhaps what keeps him going as well, coupled with the fact that the honours list is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, he's relentless, but I guess that does have a shelf life. And yeah, I think we're both in agreement. We'd perhaps be a little bit surprised if he was in the dugout for the opening game next season. It does suggest like we are coming towards the end of his time there. Obviously, last season was their 4th on the bounce, like we've discussed. They won the Premier League with 91 points, 2 points clear of Arsenal. They actually won their last 9 in a row. They drew 0-0 with Arsenal right at the end of March, a couple of days before the Sarmiento Southampton game. And everyone kind of said that was a good result for Arsenal, didn't they? They'd gone to the Etihad, hadn't lost, but Man City just then did what Man City do. They won 9 on the bounce to secure the league title. Do you think there's a slight bit of underachievement last season, only winning the Premier League? It was the treble the year before, obviously, you know, the proper treble, the Champions League, the Premier League and the FA Cup. They were perhaps unlucky against Madrid in the quarterfinals of the European Cup last year and went out. They probably should have won that game. But do you think a bit of an underachievement just to win the league? I know it sounds crazy to say that, just to win the Premier League, but do you perhaps think there's a little bit of underachievement there given what they did the season before?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I think it was always going to be slightly difficult for them because they just lost Ilkay Gundogan, they just lost Riyad Mahrez, so they weren't as strong as they were the previous season in terms of personnel, but they got themselves in position to compete in those cup competitions. It was actually the Premier League really, which was the one that was looked most in doubt at times, but they've managed to haul Arsenal in again. And I think by doing that in exciting fashion, it is still a big achievement and an uplifting season, I suppose. But it isn't. Yeah, it wasn't a vintage season. I was actually at Man City when they lifted the trophy against Chelsea the season before last. So that was the season that they won the treble, and I kind of got the vibe that their fans were. Well, let's put it this way: we celebrated that win against Southampton far more than they were celebrating winning the Premier League. It's just become just muscle memory to them. However, I think with these clubs, it's that avoiding not winning, which is what drives them on in many ways. So it's not so much the it's not so much the winning, it's nobody else being able to win in front of you is kind of what motivates these Manchester City fans in the league games at least, and then they hope that they can win the Champions League and be the best team in Europe.
Yeah, obviously, I said they won the league. I should nod. They did win a couple of the kind of was it the UEFA Super Cup and the FIFA World Club Cup as well. So they did actually finish the season with 3 trophies. They didn't win the Community Shield at the start of the year, but they did win 3 trophies last season. But yeah, I guess if you have that much success, it must be very nice for starters. But I guess you do get accustomed to it, and it does become perhaps a little bit of the kind of run of the mill. A few numbers from last season: top goal scorer, a guy called Erling Haaland, who we'll discuss a little bit later, with 27, had a poor season by his own accounts. Phil Foden, 19, PFA Player of the Year. Julian Alvarez, who they've just sold to Atletico Madrid, got 11. 96 goals scored, was the highest in the league, 2.5 per match. 34 goals conceded was the second fewest. 65% possession was the highest, and they had over 1,500 touches in the opposition box, which wasn't actually the best. Arsenal had more, but that was a number that scared me. Where would you put this Man City team? We discussed the great Premier League sides of all time. You know, Man United early 90s, Arsenal's double, Arsenal's Invincibles, Man United's treble-winning team, Chelsea under Mourinho. Where do you place this team? Are they absolute top draw for you? Are they in your, you know, if you had a Mount Rushmore of Premier League sides, where would you put this team?
I mean, it's difficult really, because do you mean specifically this team, or just sort of Pep Guardiola's
the
Manchester
general kind of
title?
The general Pep team. So the consistency, you know, the Stones, the Walker, Gundogan, Rodri.
Yeah, it's right at the very top in terms of the squad. I think that a lot of the other teams, like the Arsenal Invincibles and Manchester United of the late 90s, they had sort of 11 fantastic players and then maybe 2 or 3 players that can step in and be equally good, whereas Manchester City just have that scary kind of 18 players and they can just rotate. And that's what they do. Even at this summer, Seb, I think all of the players got 28 days off, even if they played in the Champions in the Euro final. They get 28 days off, whereas other clubs have cut that down to 3 weeks, and that just they're so good at playing the long game, Manchester City, and they rotate players in and out. I think when they're at their very best, they're definitely right up there. But they seem to just be able to, like Manchester United did in the 90s, they can have a pretty underwhelming season and still win it just on the experience in the dressing room and the muscle memory of the run-ins of the last few seasons.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, I know there's some off-field issues and some PSR, which will come to light in the next few months regarding the court case and potential charges. But I think from a footballing point of view, what he's done with this side, they have to be right up there, I would say. Probably, I think probably the Man United side of the late 90s. They won 3 on the bounce, didn't they? With the class of 92 that everyone knows, Dwight York, Andy Cole, Teddy Sheringham, etc. I always thought that was probably one of the best Premier League kind of eras in terms of a club's longevity. But yeah, what he's done with this City side is absolutely incredible. I will just quickly list Pep's stats because they are incredible. So 9th season in charge, final year of his contract, as we've already said. He's managed 473 games, won 350, drawn 57, lost only 66, 2.34 points per game, 6 Premier League titles, a Champions League, 2 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, the UEFA Super Cup last season, and the FIFA Club World Cup last season. Me and Rich debated this time last week about Jurgen Klopp and where we would place him in the top ranking, kind of, top 5, top 10, whatever, of Premier League managers. Where do you put Guardiola for what he's done for the last 9 years?
Okay, so I'm just going to caveat this, Rich, straight away by saying there's a reason you're asking me these questions in Premier League terms. We're not looking back to the 70s and 80s because I'm only 33 and we're in the Premier League and I have an interest in the Premier League and I work for the Premier League. That is why you're asking me that and not of all time, because that would be even harder for me to ask. He's right up there at the very top. And he's done what Sir Alex Ferguson did, which is he sold players and then he's rebuilt. He's brought in new players and he's bled in young players as well, like young English talented players. He's brought through a lot of those. I think he's on a par with Sir Alex Ferguson in terms of the Premier League now, and he's above Arsene Wenger and Jose Mourinho and those guys. I think they're kind of just below because he wasn't able to do it over and over and over again.
Wow. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I always have Ferguson as my kind of top away from the rest a little bit. I always think there's a gap to him in the rest of them. But then it's a very close call for me between Wenger and Pep. I know Pep's won an awful lot more. Wenger, for me, what he brought to English football in terms of the changes in nutrition and kind of players looking after each other. And I love that Arsenal invincible side. So, yeah, perhaps maybe him ever so slightly ahead of Guardiola, but Guardiola, I think, would have to be third. I think we agree he's been an absolutely incredible.
Good debate here in the chat. So Gary Haseman says on results, he's second behind Ferguson. But Wenger did single-handedly change the English game. That's definitely true. Arsene Wenger did change a lot of things in the English game, but so has Pep Guardiola. In my adult life, I've only played Sunday League football, and in the last 8 years or so, more and more teams have started playing out from the back. They probably shouldn't, a lot of them. I've been in teams that have tried to play out from the back, and we probably shouldn't have done. But that probably wouldn't have happened if Pep Guardiola didn't come over to English football. So he's also made a huge difference. And yeah, there's caveats to Pep Guardiola and these charges, but Pep Guardiola is just that's not him, is it? Like he's just been dealing with the players that he's got and bringing the best out of them and playing fantastic football and winning loads of trophies. Personally, I'm a little bit bored of it now, Seb, and I'm kind of hoping that this is his last season. But you can't doubt the impact that he's had in the English game and the success that he's had.
See, I don't think it's great for the league to have one side win it 4 on the bounce, potentially 5 on the bounce. I know Arsenal ran them close last year to the final few weeks. 2 years ago to the final few weeks. Last year, right to the final day. But I would much prefer a more competitive league. We're kind of in an era now, aren't we, where Man City are on a pedestal that no one else can get close to. Arsenal, okay, they're closing the gap a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see if they can do it this year. Then you've got a gap to, I would say, Liverpool, and then a much bigger gap to the likes of Man United, Spurs, Chelsea, etc. I don't think it's great health for the Premier League to have one side win this thing over and over, and sometimes by quite high point margins. I'd much rather have a more competitive kind of title race, a bit like we experienced for the last 2 years in League One and the Championship. 2 or 3, maybe 4 teams all going for it. I think that would make the league a much stronger proposition.
Although there has been decent title races in the last few seasons as well. Right, so let's get on to their record against Ipswich Town, Seb, because this is quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, obviously we haven't played them, have we, since they were taken over in 2009 or whatever it was, and all of the money came in. The last time Ipswich played Manchester City was an FA Cup game in 2002, wasn't it? But talk to me a little bit about this record that we have against Manchester City.
And just on the FA Cup game, it was still never a corner. I think it was the Isle Berkovic had a shot and they gave a corner and they scored from it. Yeah, never a corner. Joke. If you want some crumbs of comfort, here we go. There have been 28 Ipswich wins, 15 draws, and only 23 Man City wins. Obviously, it's our first trip to the Etihad this weekend. We've played them at Main Road, but never played at the Etihad. I will encourage you to go and listen to the excellent second edition of the Blue Monday Rewind show, which came out on Tuesday with Craig and Dave, the elder statesman, should we say, of the podcast, with much better memories than some of us. They focused on the 3-2 game, the memorable 3-2 game in November 2000, where Marcus Stewart got 2, Herman Riderson got a goal. We won 3-2 there. They said it was, well, did we go 5th after that win? Obviously, we eventually ended up finishing
3rd.
Third was it? Ended up finishing 5th. What an incredible season that was! I remember Stewart's couple of goals were brilliant. We had a rained off League Cup game there that season as well, and a replay which we won on our way to the infamous Birmingham semi-final. And we've only actually lost 1 of the last 8 games against Man City, home and away. So if you want some crumbs of comfort, there you go. Overall, we've got the better record, and the recent record against them is pretty decent. So there you go. There's your crumbs of comfort before I start talking about key players and statistics that might scare people a little bit.
So even if they beat us 7-0 on Saturday, we'll be able to walk away and say, yeah, but historically we've beaten you 28 times and you're still only on 24. And one that I remember, because they obviously weren't allowed that the format of this rewind pod that Dave and Craig are doing is to look back on Premier League meetings, isn't it? So they weren't able really to talk about that FA Cup semi-final that people are chatting about in the chat. That was 1981, wasn't it, where the City denied us a place in the FA Cup final. Could have won the treble that year, so I'm told. One that I like to look back on is 97-98, I think it was. Kieran Dyer scored a 92nd minute winner, I think it was, at Main Road. Joe Rawls' first game. We've had some fantastic games against them, but the Etihad Stadium they moved in not long after we'd been relegated, so it's always seemed like, oh, that's somewhere that will eventually go pretty soon. It was the City of Manchester Stadium. I don't know if you remember, it was built for the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
Seb, do you remember that?
It was, yeah, I remember that. I've been there to see Ed Sheeran twice, and I went to see an England warm-up game before Euro 2016. I think it was Turkey. So I've seen a couple of games there. I'm guessing in your professional capacity, you've been there a fair bit. What can we expect from the Etihad and the general kind of match day around it?
Yeah, so it's a very beautiful modern stadium. I think that it's a stadium that can be very atmospheric, but I can't imagine that Man City fans are going to be massively up for Ipswich at home. It's the first home game of the season, but we can expect a lot of football tourists at the game. And the away end has kind of been ruined, in my opinion. It used to be the single tier behind the goal. Then it became half of the section behind the goal across 2 tiers, and now it's kind of like a quarter of the bit behind the goal, but across 3 tiers. So the middle tier, I mean, to me, when I've looked up from pitch level, kind of looks like a bit of a no man's land. It's a really small tier, and probably a little bit disconnected from the upper tier that's been built on top and the lower tier below. And then I think at the other end of the ground, that was 2 tiers, but the last time I was there at the end of the season, they were building another tier on the back of that. There's also a new, I think it's called the Co-op Arena, behind the North Stand at Manchester City, which that was the arena that they booked loads of people in for, and then it kept getting delayed. But that's open now. Not a huge amount of pubs and restaurants in the area, but there is the famous Main Road Chippy, which is quite near the ground. That's very popular on a match day. And yeah, let's just say that while not all of the Manchester City fans will be particularly tribal on Saturday afternoon playing against Ipswich, there are definitely some people that sit either side of the away fans who very much will be tribal. So do your best to not rise to it if you're in that away end, is my advice. And Seb, as you're wearing the pink shirt, is that a prediction for what shirt we're going to be wearing?
It'll be the normal away shirt, won't it? That you can get away with that. Or would it even be dark blue? I seem to remember having seen Chelsea play there in the past in blue. So I don't know what the rules are regarding colour.
I think it's a shorts issue. I don't think we bother with blue shorts anymore. So
right, okay. So I
I'm
presume
expecting the burgundy.
Yeah, given Rich has done the burgundy background and the fact we haven't worn it yet, I presume we'll see that make an appearance and perhaps save the pink kit for Brighton away in 2-3 weeks' time. Is it now? Maybe a month's time. Maybe save the pink shirt for that airing. I haven't got the burgundy kit, so I thought I'd wear this one tonight with pride. I picked it up last weekend at the Liverpool game, so I thought I'd wear it with pride.
Lovely. I think it's time to hear from our sponsors, Seb. Blue Monday is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends at Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for work on property or business law. Their client care has repeatedly been recognised as outstanding, and they are people-focused with a plain English approach which sets them apart. They have offices in Ipswich, Colchester and London, and to find out more, head to atwells.com. Right, Seb, I was just taking a deep breath there because we're about to go into style of play. Talk us through Pep Guardiola's Manchester City and their style of play, Seb.
And to clarify, this is just my relatively uneducated opinion and some research that I've done. So we all know it's the heavily possession based. They pass more than any side in the Premier League. They aren't necessarily the quickest at getting the ball forward. They will kind of build up in phases and build up relatively more on the slower and intricate scale rather than get the ball forward as quickly as possible. Basically, in layman's terms, what he does is he puts a load of boxes, imaginary boxes, down both flanks, and he puts a load of rectangles in the middle. And the idea is you can only have a maximum of 2 players in any of the boxes on the flanks, or 3 players on the rectangles in the middle of the pitch. And what that enables them to do is open up passing triangles, passing diamonds, and they can really look to get people forward and overload in key areas. So we will see the centre halves, be it John Stones or Akanji, will step up into midfield. You'll see Gvardiol, the left back, step into midfield, and that's where they'll really look to create the overloads. And at times it will be basically a 2-3-5 formation in attack with kind of just two at the back, Rodri and a couple of others if Rodri plays, the deeper lying central midfielder alongside a couple of centre backs who've moved into the midfield positions, and that will allow those attacking players behind Erling Haaland to really go. And that's where they look to isolate the weaker players. We've all seen the clips probably of Grealish on the left hand side running at a fullback, cutting inside. Doku last weekend against Chelsea, they won 2-0 last time out against Chelsea. Last weekend, they kind of looked like they were in second gear and could easily have gone up a notch if they needed to. I thought he'll look to do that as well. So it's all about overloads. It's all about isolating what they deem to be the weaker players with their superior players in one-on-one formations. And you will have to sit back and absorb pressure. They will pass the ball around. They make on average 624 passes per game, which is 100 more than the closest rival, who is Brighton. They will keep the ball for the vast majority of the match, and they will look to create that space in behind, a bit like us with the pullbacks in terms of people on the flank looking to pull the ball back for the likes of Haaland or De Bruyne running into the box, or Rodri arriving late. And don't rule out their set pieces as well. I was surprised for a side that plays such pretty football, who can score all kinds of goals. They also scored 16 goals in the league from set pieces last year, which just proves you can play all the nice ticky-tacky football you want to. You can look to overload and create things, but if you need somebody to whip a good quality ball in and get ahead on the end of it, then they're very, very good at that as well.
Yeah, because when you play against sides that are much better than you technically, and just on a different stratosphere to you really as players, you might think, well, let's just restrict them to set pieces and just back ourselves to defend them. And quite often the smaller sides, let's say the smaller sides in terms of club stature, might back themselves to be slightly more physical. But the problem with Manchester City is they're all absolutely massive. They've got obviously a big goalkeeper that's really good with his feet. I'm hoping that you'll mention that he potentially is a potential route to goal for us, potentially. And then they've got these defenders. So there's Kyle Walker might play right back. He's about 6 foot, but he's an absolute physical specimen, isn't he? And then they'll choose between the likes of Diaz, Akanji, Huge, and then at left back they'll probably play Gvardiol or maybe Nathan Ake. They're both centre backs. They're both over 6'2". Then in midfield you've got Kevin De Bruyne, who's a big fella. The only smaller players, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, and then the new lad Silvinho out on the wing. Doku's not particularly big, but overall they can just they can overpower you in terms of their physicality as well as their tiki-taka football. So this is a frightening prospect, because with Liverpool, see, they've got Van Dijk. I didn't even mention Erling Haaland there, did I? He's 6'4", 6'5". But looking at Liverpool last week, yeah, they've got Van Dijk. But I was looking around thinking, yeah, we've got players that can sort of live with the set pieces and win first and second balls. But we might find it hard to even do that on Saturday, Seb. It's gonna be tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as Ipswich fans, Ben keeps quoting, doesn't he, on the Flagship Shows, a chat put on Twitter saying, get these 2 final pre-seasons out the way and then the season begins. And I think even the most blue-tinted, spectacle-wearing ITFC fan would struggle to deny that this is going to be a real challenge at the weekend, let's be honest. But it's what we're here for. It's what we want, isn't it? You know, in some ways it is a free hit. You know, we haven't got Calvin effing Phillips isn't eligible to play yet. Obviously, we'll discuss our team short in a bit. But like Neil says there in the chat, let's just make it hard for them to make them earn their win. Exactly what we did for Liverpool last weekend. At halftime last weekend, Liverpool knew they were in a game. The manager had to change things tactically. He made a substitution. He kind of pushed Trent Alexander-Arnold into midfield a little bit more, and he had to make key changes, which eventually resulted in them getting the game. But all the pundits afterwards were saying how well we did in that first half. And that's all we can ask for the side against this kind of level of opposition. You know, what we did last weekend and what we do on Saturday isn't really going to impact if we stay in the league or not. You know, it's what's to come after that, where hopefully we'll start to see some points picking up. So it is the hardest game of the season. It's away at the probable 5-time in a row Premier League champions. But if we can give a good account of ourselves and we can look to go there and not necessarily, I don't think we know how to sit in, do we? We don't know how to sit back and how to kind of defend a little bit. I think we will try and play as close to what we know as our A game without being overly cavalier like we normally are. But if we can give a good account of ourselves and come away with that, like we did after Liverpool, feeling optimism, feeling confidence, feeling pride, then I think that's all we can ask for, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is the part of the show, Seb, where I used to learn something off you, where you pick out the key player for the opposition, and quite often they'd pop up and score a goal a few years ago. There'd often be players that I'd never even heard of before, and then you'd mention them, and then below and behold, they were the star player for the opposition. So I'm really interested to see where you've gone with Manchester City, Seb.
Well, I think we all know the names that I'm about to reel off, so I'll keep it short and sweet. But obviously, Erling Haaland is the main man in terms of goals. 64 goals.
Short or sweet, Seb.
In 67 Premier League appearances. He's scored at least once against every 22 side he's played against in the Premier League. He's also scored 13 goals in 9 appearances in August in the competition. He's a player that likes the start of the season. That's more than he's netted in any other month. So he is an absolute machine. As I said earlier, 27 league goals with an apparent a poorer season given what he did in the first year there. But he's had the summer off. Norway weren't at the Euros, obviously, so he's had a nice summer off and he's come back, opened the account last weekend against Chelsea and looks right back at it. Phil Foden, 90. But
sorry, just on Erling Haaland, I'm lucky enough to be going to the game on Saturday. I have seen Erling Haaland in the flesh 6 times, and he has scored 1 goal, just 1 goal.
So you're telling me there's a chance, as Rich would always say at this point. So excellent, good. You can be our good luck omen. What about the rest of the side? Any other players that you've kind of a bit of a curse over, or?
Unfortunately, not that I've noticed really. I don't think I've ever seen Kevin De Bruyne score, but he normally seems to be injured when I've watched Man City. I will add that when I have watched them, it's generally been games that I've worked out that are against Liverpool or Chelsea
right.
or Manchester United, games like that are quite hard. But Grealish always plays well when I see him, but he's potentially going to be left on the bench. Bernardo Silva always impresses me.
Yeah, you mentioned Grealish there. I think this is a really big season for him because he didn't set the world alight in his first year, then became a pretty integral part of that treble-winning side and did really well. And then last year was in and out the side, had a bit of injury. Obviously, the England snub that none of us were really expecting in the summer. He was back on the bench, had a bit of a knock towards the end of pre-season, back on the bench last week against Chelsea. I think this is a really big season for him. I don't know how long the length of contract was, probably a 5-year deal he would have signed. So potentially going into the last couple of years of his deal, Doku brings pace and, directness on that left-hand side. So I think this is a big season for Grealish. I think he needs to look to get back to what he had 2 years ago rather than the first year and the third year of his time there, because he was definitely off the boil, I thought. You just mentioned Bernardo Silva, a player I absolutely love. plays kind of on the right of the three behind the striker, but will drift anywhere. Such a technically excellent player. 43 assists in the Premier League is now the joint highest with Nani, the ex-Man United player. So I love it. Every summer he seems to have a transfer rumor that he'll go to Barcelona. I never want it to happen because he's a player that I really, really love to watch. So delighted that he's here for another year. Hopefully he goes easy against us at the weekend. Kevin De Bruyne, more rumors this year of a move to Saudi. He is getting on now. I think he's 33, going to be 34 this summer. So this year, sorry. So he is starting to get on a little bit. He missed the first 4 to 5 months of last season. He got an injury, didn't he, on the opening night against Burnley, then didn't appear until New Year's Eve, but he still managed to finish top of their assists charts with 10. Absolutely phenomenal player, but one that perhaps is maybe coming towards the end of his time there. Edison, who you previously mentioned, is going into his 8th season in goal. As you say, could that be a route to goal for us? He does like to take chances at the back, and Liam Delap.
They normally concede. They do normally concede, even against the so-called weaker teams. They kept a clean sheet last week at Stamford Bridge, but they were maybe on high alert against those sorts of teams, and they were a little bit lucky at times. Like there was a goal that was scored against them that was marginally offside. But yeah, there's definitely we will get a couple of chances. It's just whether we can take them or not. And I think another of their best players towards the end of last season was Guardiola. Do you remember him against Ipswich?
Was that the Innsbruck Cup? Was it when George Hurst bullied him?
Yeah. George Hurst absolutely bullied him, but shame he's not playing.
Absolutely. He's kind of solved their left back, left centre half conundrum, hasn't he? They've gone through a few left backs in recent years, but he's kind of made that position his own. And look, I could keep listing Carl Walker, John Stones, all the rest of them. This is a side of absolute superstars. It's better than the Liverpool names that I reeled off last week. So I won't keep going through them. We all know what's to come. They're just the standout ones with kind of the key stats behind them. They have got a couple of injury doubts. Obviously, Rodri went off at half time in the Euros final, and we all kind of thought, brilliant, here we go. This is where it all turns. He's now back in training and might well be on the bench, perhaps. Probably won't start, but he might be on the bench. It was Kovacic and De Bruyne, I think, in central midfield last weekend. So Rodri might be back on the bench if they need him. Savinho was subbed off at half time against Chelsea with a knee injury. He's being monitored to see if he can make it, but again, might well be fine for the bench. And Oscar Bob, who they were expecting big things from this summer, unfortunately got a broken leg in pre-season, so he's a longer-term injury. So Rodri and Savinho, slight doubts, but I'd imagine they probably will be on the bench if required.
Superstars everywhere you look, just like our sponsors, Seb, Atwell's, who we heard from earlier, and One Stop Badges. Check out those guys. I'm looking forward to getting a couple of nice One Stop Badges, or Blue Monday ones potentially. They could be in the works soon. Check out our merch store as well if you're that way inclined. Join us in the Telegram. That's going to be absolutely buzzing on Saturday afternoon. As I guess our fans kind of have to adapt to the fact that not all of our games are on telly anymore. That's going to be an interesting one, right, Seb?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Yeah, I guess we were very fortunate last weekend with the TNT opening 12:30 game. But yeah, there'll be quite a lot of people who are going to have to rely on the good old-fashioned, I think, Talk Sport 2, I think, are covering it, are they? If I remember rightly what I was reading earlier. So there will be some places to watch it. But it's a bit like the 90s, isn't it? We'll have to wait for Match of the Day at 10:30 on a Saturday night to see some of the highlights. It's like a throwback. I quite like that, actually. I think that's quite good.
Yeah, it's on after Parkinson, I think. The Flagship Show, you're going to be back for that, aren't you, Seb? That's with Ben and Dave, classic combo. Please leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. And you can also win a signed Ipswich Town shirt, courtesy of the lovely people at Football Prizes. They're raffling it off at the end of the month, and it's only £3.95 for a ticket. Here it is here. And you can get involved here, footballprizes.co.uk/product/Ipswich-debut. And there's 14 instant win prizes as well, including a Sam Morsey signed and framed 24-25. Oh, that's the new shirt signed by Sam Morsey. That's brilliant. Get involved in that. Only £3.95 for a ticket. That is exciting stuff. Seb, that would go pretty well behind you, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I could do I moved my shirts to this wall here, so I need to maybe do a bit of a rearranging and get something behind me again.
Lovely. And Matt Macon says he thinks Parky's interviewing Rod Hull and Emu this week. Brilliant. And it's also after Starsky and Hutch. Excellent. Yeah, Match the Day live at 10:30. We've talked about the style of play. We've talked about the star players. Let's talk about Manchester City's absences. You mentioned Rodri, Seb. Probably unlikely to be playing from the start because he didn't make the squad against Chelsea. And Savinho, the summer signing, he went off at half time with a knee problem, didn't he?
Yeah, like we said earlier, went off at half time with a knock. Foden, they bought on Phil Foden to replace him, so that's where we're at. You know, if Savinho doesn't make it for the weekend, then Phil Foden will probably get his start of the season, which is just crazy when you say it. I've got two more stats to give you. One will fill you with dread, and then one will give you a bit of a crumb of comfort. So the dread stat is that Man City are unbeaten in their last 44 home games in all competitions, 137 and drawn 7, since Brentford beat them just before the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. So they're on a very long run, very long undefeated run at home. But you have to go back to the 2006-7 season for the last time Ipswich started a league campaign with 2 defeats in on bounce. That was Jim Magilton's first season. We lost to Crystal Palace and I think Leicester or Hull, it might have been. And in the top flight, you have to go back to the 1985-86 season, which is nearly 40 years for the last time we started
hang on,
with
Seb.
2 defeats.
Football started in 1992.
I know, but the stat doesn't sound so impressive. So go back to 85-86 and it's nearly 40 years. So nearly 40 years since Ipswich Town lost the first 2 games of a top flight campaign. And as we all know, Kieran McKenna has never lost back-to-back games. So we're nailed on for at least a point. And there's your crumbs of comfort, chaps.
I'll say it in Rich's absence. Rich is just on holiday, by the way. You don't need to worry about him. But you're telling me there's a chance? It's been said now. I want to hear. Well, you've done your insight now for Manchester City, Seb. I want your insights or your predictions, at least for the Ipswich side of it. Obviously, there's question marks over the goalkeeper. We might find out leading up to the game. It might be one where we find out when the team's announced. That's Muric. Will it be Muric or will it be Christian Walton in goal again?
Sounds like he's got a late fitness test. Sounds like it was a late fitness test last weekend that he didn't make, and it sounds a little bit similar. So I thought Walton did absolutely fine last weekend. We know it's not his game to be playing out from the back, but some of his saves were really impressive. And if he hadn't made some of those and had it been a 4 or a 5-0 defeat, you know, we might have come away with that slightly different. So if it's Walton, no issues at all. You know, it's probably not the kind of game we're going to want to pass out from the back and tempt City onto us. So maybe having Walton with that big left foot swing isn't the worst thing in the world. Great shot stopper, as we know. We discussed City's prowess from set pieces. We know he likes to command his area and come for the ball. So, yeah, no issue with Walton whatsoever. And then what do you think we'll do in terms of a system? So we saw against Nice, didn't we? Ben Johnson played the Wes Burns role. Wes Burns, we know, is out for a number of weeks following McKenna's pre-match presser this afternoon. So with Burns out, do you put Johnson in that role and have him slightly deeper and have Twanzebe almost more of a third centre-back rather than a right-back getting forward? Is that what you'd look to do alongside Wolfenden and Greaves?
That is personally what I would do. And I, especially having seen us do it against Nice, they must have been doing that for a reason. Yeah. And the fact that Wes Burns is injured does point towards the obvious replacement there, unless you go with Amari Hutchinson down the right and then you maybe play Schmodix off the left. But that feels like a very attacking lineup, doesn't it? Can you really see us playing Hutchinson, Chaplin, Schmodix, and Delap away at Manchester City? He could do it, but yeah. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that happens. I think playing the 3 at the back, you can then play Ben Johnson in a position that he's more comfortable in and one that he's played in before as a right wing back. Leif Davis, it doesn't really change his role particularly, does it, playing left wing back? And then you have the extra physical presence at centre back with Turnzabe going alongside Wolfenden and Greaves, which we've spoken about what physical team Manchester City are. That might also help. And it also means that we can load the middle of the pitch a little bit more. And we can maybe even think about not playing all of those little diminutive attackers. But yeah, it's a difficult one. And I'm sure that Kieran McKenna's had this planned out for weeks now, what he's going to do in this one. But it's definitely going to be interesting, isn't it?
It will be, yeah. I mean, obviously, he's a very process-driven, methodical manager, and it's very rare he throws new signings straight into the side. You know, the windows that we've seen him sign people, normally it's off the bench for the first couple of weeks whilst they really look to get up to speed. We know Calvin Phillips can't play. He's ineligible because of the loan. Do you throw Kayuste straight in alongside Morsey for that athleticism? He loves a tackle. He loves to move the ball. Or do you play Luongo, Morsey, and him? What would you look to do there? Morsey's nailed on. It's just a case of, does he go Luongo, who I thought did okay against Liverpool, but noticeably in the second half, I think his athleticism kind of dropped off, didn't it? And they moved up a gear. Or do you throw Kayuste straight in alongside Morsey and kind of go for a bit more running power, perhaps in midfield?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if QST comes in, just because I think that if we play four at the back, I think it will be Luongo and Morsey again, and then maybe with Taylor coming on the hour or QST coming on the hour. But if we go for three in midfield, I think it probably will be. It's unlikely to be Morsey, Luongo, Taylor, is it?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought that. And then I'm guessing Schmodic off the left in the left-hand 10-ish role. Obviously, we've got Delap through the middle. And then if Breuer does sign in time by midday tomorrow, I presume he'll be on the bench and look to get some minutes in the second half. If we're going for the game, you could remove Johnson and put Delap out wide right, couldn't you? Who can get slightly more advanced, and put Breuer through the middle if he kind of signs in time. Yeah, it'll be interesting to what he does, because we don't really know how else to play, do we? You know, Davis was notably deeper in the first half, dealing with Mo Salah last weekend, so he's probably going to have to deal with Bernardo Silva, so he might well be a bit deeper as well. So it will be interesting, but yeah, you're right. There was a reason we trialled that system against Nice, wasn't there? And it's what McKenna played when he first came in, wasn't it? You know, Donacien was very much kind of a hybrid right back / right centre half, so it's not something completely new to them. It'll just be that central midfield configuration. You know, does Chaplin miss out, and we kind of look to tighten up the midfield and see if we're still in the game at 60 minutes, there's only one goal, do we then look to perhaps bring on the threat of the likes of, you know, Chaplin, Taylor, whatever, to try and nick something? Yeah, that'll be the interesting bit of the puzzle, but we'll have to wait and see obviously what happens. I think Michael in the comment there said Edmondson potentially instead of Wolfenden because of the set plays. I was so impressed with Greaves from set plays last weekend against Liverpool. I thought he got his head to everything. He kind of is just done what Cameron Burgess did so well for us for a couple of seasons. So yeah, I'd imagine Greaves will be the one to really look to clear his lines. And for a debut last weekend, I thought he was absolutely excellent in terms of his aggressive front foot defending as well. You know, there were so many times he was almost halfway in the Liverpool half putting tackles in, and I really like that. So yeah, for me, he'd be the physical option that we've already got at the back.
Excellent. So I'm going to push you for your team then, Seb. Tell me what you'd be doing here.
Let's assume Muric doesn't make it. So I'd go Walton. I'd go Johnson in the Burns role. So Twanzebe, right back / centre half. Wolfenden, Burgess, Leif Davis, Morsey, Kayuste, Schmodic on the left 10-ish role. Do I put Luongo in the middle alongside? No, Chaplin and Delap. Go for it. Why not? Go for it. I've got no idea how you beat them. That's the problem. I don't know if you're best off pressing like you do against Liverpool, trying to, you know, really get in their faces. We're not a side that can sit deep. So if you're going to press from the off, then you're going to want, you know, I've not even mentioned Amari there. I know Amari has to play instead of Chaplin. So yeah, Amari in the 10, Schmodic on the left, Kayuste and Morsey as the central midfield, and Delap through the middle as the striker.
I was hoping you'd tie yourself up in knots there, Seb, and you did. It's wonderful. And I'm not going to give you my team. I'll have to. You have to join me in the pub if you want to hear that. Michael Warner says everyone steps up into midfield 0-9-1. I don't know. It's going to be a very deep midfield if it's 9 of us in there. Trevor thinks we're going to receive a massive bid for Greaves at some point. Yeah, he has been. Well, we've only seen one league game, but he looks like an outstanding signing, doesn't he? And also potentially a really good partner for Luke Wolfenden, because I thought he looked excellent last week against Liverpool.
Yeah, I was impressed with Wolfenden as well. Yeah, Greaves just looks every bit a Premier League player, doesn't he? You know, aggressive defending, tall, quick. He's a specimen. He won everything in the box. Left-footed centre half. I saw a couple of people debate. I might be on the chat last week debating possibly 2 of which calls up to the England squad this season in Leif Davis, and they reckon Jacob Greaves won't be too far behind, because, you know, defence is an area where England are struggling, and if he can have a half decent season, being left-footed and being an athlete, he might well get a call up.
Brilliant. I think this is the time that we go into the the FPL feature. The predictions are no longer here. You were really sad to see the back of those, weren't you, Seb? Ben and I now do those across his channel and the Blue Monday feed. Ben gave me an absolute hiding last week. He amassed 13 points, which is pretty impressive. I didn't get close, actually, but I did back Ipswich to win. But spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this week's predictions, please check them out. I may have gone for Manchester City to beat Ipswich this time, but it's reverse psychology. That's why, because I didn't do that last week and we lost. But yeah, anyway, no more predictions on this show. It's the FPL feature. And this feature is brought to you by Brett Vale Golf Club, a stunning 18-hole golf course in the heart of Constable Country. It's rated as must-play by golfshake.com. It's located only 10-minute drives from the Copdock Interchange, exiting at East Bergholt off the A12. Easy to get to with ample parking. To book a round, visit brettvale.golf.co.uk to see tee time availability, as well as the latest offers and membership availability, or follow Brett Vale Golf on Instagram. This Blue Monday Golf Day that I've been talking about since I joined the pod in about 2017 is getting nearer and nearer, Seb. I know you've got no interest, but really happy to have Brett Vale on board, and I'm sure. Let's take a look at the team, or rather than that, let's have a look at last week's results.
Yeah, so I finally, I think for the first time ever since Room 101 was got rid of, I have taken the lead. So I finished on 62 points. He finished on 44 points. We agreed to double the ITFC. If we had ITFC players in the starting 11, we agreed to double their contribution, but they did nothing in either side. So we both got 3 points there. So I am on 65 points. He is on 47 points. I am already designing the T-shirt that he's going to have to wear. Hopefully he'll get bored of the feature quite soon and just give up. And because I'm so confident, I haven't changed my team this weekend. I've got an injury doubt over Pedro Poirot. He's got an exclamation mark next to him. So I've got Konza on the bench, ready to come in if need be. And apart from that, I've left it as it is. The only Man City player I have in is Guardiola facing us. Unlike some, I don't like to benefit from bringing in FPL players who then score against Ipswich Town, but that's another matter. And yeah, I'm hoping for more of the same from my team because it was a decent start to the season. I think he's made a change on his, hasn't he? If you bring up his team, yeah, he's taken out Ollie Watkins and he's copied me by putting in Isaac. So game week 1, week 2, he's already starting to copy me. So he has kept Leif Davis in the back line. He's taken Jacob Greaves out, but he's kept Leif Davis in the back line, which I suggest would perhaps be brave. And he's also got, like me, he's got Amari Hutchinson in there as well. And he's captain Erling Haaland against Ipswich. So Diego Jota last week, who scored, Erling Haaland this week as captain. No loyalty from Woodward.
It's smart though, isn't it? Because you don't lose as badly if you have them in your fantasy football team. It's disloyal, Mikey.
There's no other word for it. It's disloyal.
Okay, I won't tell you who's captaining my team. Let's have a look at well, I know that, let's just put this out there. You've allowed people into this league who aren't playing the game in the same way as you. So we've got lads in this Prematch Show FPL league who have just done their best team. They've just put their best team in there, and
that's fair enough. That's fine. We did say that on the opening episode. We said you don't have to abide by the same rules we do. We've just done that between ourselves to make it a little bit interesting and presumably to lessen the gap between me and him at the end of the season when I wipe the floor with him.
Jacob Powley, Big Bad Wolfenden, got 76 points. That's the most points out of anyone in the whole Blue Monday Telegram group FPL league. And I know that because I played against Jacob in week 1. So I was beaten at predictions by Ben and absolutely beaten again in the FPL. So yeah, not a great start to the season for me on a personal level. Neil Wilmore agrees with you. He says it's shameful going for Haaland as captain. Matt Macon says it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I know, Matt, but I've never been in the lead before, so I don't really know how to deal with it. I think from predictions number 1, he took the lead and just comfortably destroyed me for a couple of years. So I'll have to allow myself a giddy bit of excitement of being finally in the lead of a competition feature between me and Rich.
Michael Warner says, what position does Johnson play? He didn't seem to know himself. So Johnson is a right back. who can play left back. But I believe he was put in defensive midfield for a European tie last season at West Ham and had an absolute stormer there. But I think right back is probably his natural position, although Seb's putting him in right wing forward.
Well, no, right.
City away.
Yeah, he plays the role deeper, doesn't he? He doesn't play it as advanced as Wes Burns. We saw that against Nice. It was strange last weekend, wasn't it? He came on and kind of looked a little bit all at sea, and then right towards the end of the game, made that brilliant kind of brought the ball down as Liverpool were looking to break and started to move into central midfield to start another attack. So whilst, he maybe looked a little bit uncomfortable in what he was asked to do in that role, I thought that one moment showed the quality that he's got. And look, you don't make 60 Premier League appearances for a club like West Ham without having something about you. If he's kind of still learning the system, he's still relatively new to it. I think he'll be a brilliant signing, especially on a free. And I think he showed just about enough in kind of pre-season and that last couple of minutes against Liverpool to show that we've probably got a proper player there.
Matt Phillips says, didn't Pep play under the great Sir Bobby at Barcelona? Clearly learnt from the best. I think he definitely did, didn't he? And Ronaldo was in that team as well. I'm just going to some questions here, Seb, just to close us out. We've got another 5 minutes here. So, get a question in the chat for Seb or myself if you've got any before we go. Here's a good one. Jack Diaf says, we should get Paul Cook back for this game. He's got a 100% record against Pep's Man City. Remember that one from the Man City documentary, Seb?
Yeah, was it like Monday night FA Cup game for Wigan or something, wasn't it? Was it 1-0? Was it at Man City? I presume it was at the DW, was it?
No, it was at the DW, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, I'm fine. I'd still rather lose on Saturday and keep Kieran McKenna in the dugout, thanks.
Jason Clayton, we seem to be going into these games as little old Ipswich, just happy to be here. So just spank us 3-0 and that's okay. Not sure that sits well. I think there was a bit of debate about this in the chat, but I started because it is a real change of pace, this, for us, isn't it? We've never really gone into games like this, even when we were in the Premier League the last time.
Yeah, no, this is next level to everything. I certainly don't think we're here to happy to be here. I mean, I think the signings and the business we're doing proves that, we're not doing what Norwich did, where they come up and they kind of make a few signings and they don't really compete and they get relegated with a whimper, or what Luton did, last season in terms of, kind of signing no players for more than a certain amount, etc., and building for the future. I think the signings we're making prove we are serious about this. We are here to compete. We've got the best young manager in the Premier League, and I think that we are showing that we are absolutely not resting on our laurels, not here to kind of have a few day trips out and stuff. I think we will be very competitive, but at the same time, we do have to be realistic and think to ourselves, this is Man City away. I've just given you the stats. They're closing in, well, 4 on the bounce, possibly closing in on a 5th. This is an exceptional generational side, and no matter how good we are, everything could go right for us, and they might still end up smashing us. We'll do our predictions. We'll get everyone's predictions in a minute. They might still end up smashing us, and that's just the world that we're in. The games will come easier. Fulham after this, still a very, very tough game, but it's not Liverpool. It's not Man City. Brighton on the horizon. Southampton. There are games where hopefully we can pick up points. But yeah, I think we have to be a little bit realistic and possibly expect a defeat this weekend. But I certainly think we are here to compete with the signings that we've made, and what Game Changer have proven to us is that they like to advance this football club, and I think that's what we're about to see.
Neatly brings me on to this one. What realistically would be a good result for us? Matt Phillips asked. This Man City side arguably the best an Ipswich team would have played in most of our lifetimes. I think this probably is the best team I've seen Ipswich play.
Yeah, it is. It's probably better than the kind of the Ferguson and Wenger sides of the early 2000s. Obviously, we weren't around for the Mourinho era or the Invincibles era. I think, like Neil said in the chat earlier, if we can come away from the game feeling proud again, then that's all I'm asking for on Saturday. I don't expect us to win. I'll give you my score prediction in a second. I don't expect us to win the game, but if I can come away and just like last week, I can see a few moments, certain things that make me realise, yes, we can compete with the absolute elite, the absolute best of the best. That's all I'm asking for the weekend. Looking to build for Fulham, when we will be able to get the likes of Kelvin effing Phillips into the side and look to really move on from there.
I might tease your prediction out of you here with this question from Michael Warner. Who's going to score the first Premier League goal for Town, and what game?
For some reason, I think it's going to be Sami Šmodić. I've thought this since he signed. He's a bit of a goal machine, and I'd love it to be on Saturday. I think we will score on Saturday, so I'll say Sami Šmodić will score at the Etihad and get our first league goal of the campaign.
Wonderful. Jordan Mitchell, if Muric is 50-50, do we leave him another week to recover, make sure he's 100% for a more winnable game against Fulham rather than risk further injury against City? I don't know. I feel like he did a fitness test last week and he was fit enough to do a fitness test and they didn't play him. I think if he's fit enough to play, he will play.
Yeah, I agree. If it's 50-50, I don't think you risk him. But if he's at a fitness test level, it's probably not 50-50, is it? It's probably closer to, I don't know, 70-30 or whatever. So, yeah, if there's any doubts, they won't risk him and Walton will play again. And then Muric hopefully will come good for Fulham next weekend. But if it's too late fitness test, then, yeah, if he's anywhere close to playing, I think he'll be in.
There's a bit of chat about pundits in the chat here. Gary Neville said the 3 promoted teams will go back down. But Neil Wilmore pointed out that Carragher reckons we won't go down. Reading Tractor's not positive. He thinks a 5-0 hiding, not our strongest yet, but hopes he's wrong. Matt says, yeah, the gulf between top and bottom in this league is so much bigger than the last time we played at this level. Blagger 101 says, Stuart Watson reports Kieran McKenna has revealed he plans to deploy Swedish midfielder in a different role to the one he played at Napoli last season. What role did he play at Napoli last season, Seb?
I can't pretend to be an expert. I don't know. The kind of things we've heard is that he's he loves a tackle, he can carry the ball, he's athletic, he's strong. So I assume he'll play maybe in a slightly deeper role. Maybe at Napoli he was pushed forward a little bit, but I can't pretend to be an expert on Napoli. I'm not going to lie.
Colin Plum reckons that our first goal will be Delap against his old club, against Manchester City this weekend. He hasn't given me a score prediction yet, not that I've seen anyway. Jem Allen, that's the first one I've seen, going for Ipswich to win 2-1 on Saturday. She believes Blue Army. Lovely stuff. Neil Wilmer, McKenna smokescreen. Okay. Have they signed anyone who's good at free kicks? Well, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, haven't they? Michael Warner says 3-1 to Town. Greaves to score from a corner. Wow. Streaky, positive all season, 2-1 Town. Wonderful. 1-0 win. Delap to score of only shot on target. Town to Fulham Maidstone, says Alex Jenkins. I suppose it wouldn't be as big a shock us winning at Man City as Maidstone winning at Ipswich, would it? These crazy things do happen.
They do. And also, if you look at the sides that have won at City in recent years, it's Brentford, it's Palace. I know United won there a few times, probably with McKenna involved in the coaching staff, actually thinking about it. But they do have a habit of throwing in a result against somebody unexpected. So, yeah, it's football. Why can't that be us? But spoiler alert, that's not what I'm going to go for. I think it's going to be 3-1 to Man City. But I think Sami Šmodić hopefully will give us a goal. And I think there's no disgrace coming away with a 3-1 defeat. Collins just put 3-1 there as well. I don't think there's any disgrace coming away from the Etihad with a 3-1 defeat. If we can get a goal, if we can see some positive moments, make them work hard for it, then the momentum and the goodwill and the optimism can continue building for Fulham in the next weekend.
Brilliant. And then, so the next time we'll see you, Seb, will be after this game on the Flagship Show on Sunday. And then hopefully we'll be going into the real quiz, Fulham, the following week without too negative a goal difference. But we're going to the Etihad Stadium, Seb. Let's enjoy this. We've been to some pretty ropey stadiums over the last few years, haven't we? We were dreaming of days like this. Let's not worry too much about the result on Saturday. Let's just get behind them and stay behind them. Seb, I'll let you do the final words here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you for coming in and hosting. Much, much better job than the usual incumbent. So thank you for your time, mate. Appreciate that. Yeah, like you say, let's enjoy this. I mean, if you were there at Forest Green going up the hill in the broken down bus in 30-degree weather, we're about to go to the Etihad and see one of the best ever Premier League sides go up against our club. So yeah, enjoy the moments, enjoy the day. If you're in the city centre, come and find us in some various pubs. I'm sure if you join Telegram, you'll find out where people are. Keep the faith, keep the optimism, keep the momentum. And as always, come on, you Blues.